Well, that means one thing. We are live back to Road Gang Radio with your hosts, Lindsay Lawler and Jimmy Mack.
Lindsay Lawler in the
Lindsay
house.
Lawler!
Welcome back to Road Gang Radio. And who's more part of a road gang than your pets? Our truck drivers know how important their pets to them are on the road, their companions, sometimes more fun and better listeners than taking, say, a spouse or a child. What's better on the road?
What?
You heard me. Get out of the cab. Make room for my dog. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Carol Osborne. Dr. Carol Osborne, DVM. She's gained national recognition as an authority in traditional and alternative veterinary medicine. I love this. And healthcare for our pets. She's our nation's first veterinarian to be certified as a diplomat of the American Board of Anti-Aging Medicine. This is going to be a really fun conversation. We can discuss everything on the road. We're going to keep it light and bright and fun, but natural and traditional ways to prevent and eliminate fleas in your cats and dogs, which of course will be important. You don't want fleas jumping all over your cab. Dr. Carol has been on our show many times before, but today we're going to keep it light and bright and talk about how to integrate your pets into your road life, because after all, this is Road Gang Radio. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Carol Osborne. Good morning.
Good morning, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Carol, we're going to begin where Lindsay kind of alluded to. In order to actually have your pet really enjoy the ride and for you to enjoy the ride with your pet, you just don't want them carrying around fleas or any other invasive things that get on them. So let's just kind of start with creating an environment both outside the cab and inside the cab to allow your pet to enjoy the ride and to allow you to get a good night's sleep without smacking your own skin.
Well, that's a very good point. And fleas, they're going to be a problem anytime it's about, 60 or 65 degrees outside with regularity. So in the home, buy yourself a box of borax and sprinkle it on the floors and pound it into the carpets. Leave it on a couple hours and vacuum it up. That'll give you 1 year of natural flea protection within the home that actually works. Different companies out there like Flea Busters, they'll come and do the same thing for $300 or $400. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind if you want to. Remember that fleas live in the environment, not on your pet. So they only jump on pets long enough to get a blood meal, go back to the ground, and lay a bunch of more eggs. So just because you don't see fleas on your pet doesn't mean your pet doesn't have fleas. As far as what you can do to prevent them, there's all kinds of products, natural as well as traditional through the veterinarian. One product called NexGard, it is a prescription through your vet, but it works very well and quite effectively for fleas and ticks. Ticks have really become a big deal in the last year or so, transmitting 10 different diseases, not only to your pet, excuse me for that, but also to people. So that's a good product to keep in mind. And if you're looking for natural remedies, there are all kinds. Products, topical products with clove, CLOVE, have shown quite a bit of effectiveness towards fleas and ticks. You just have to make sure to read the labels, and then you can make different products. If you're up to all that, with rosemary and peppermint, you can make shampoos as well as dips and even itching remedies if you want to. It just depends how much you want to roll up your sleeves and go to work.
I don't. I want to do as little as possible.
That's
okay.
what I was thinking.
I'm going to talk about emotional support because we hear emotional support animals, but I think whether you're cognizant of that being a thing and putting a vest on your pet, or you just love your pet, you don't realize that you love your pet because it probably is an emotional support to you in some way, shape, or form. It calms you, and it's a happy place. So I think we are all with our pets because they're emotional support. So I want to talk about the idea of if dogs or cats or whatever you have, say as it pertains to on the road, Dr. Carol, in the road in your truck on the road, if your pets can, and I know the answer is yes, but I want to talk about why they can sense when their person is stressed behind the wheel? And if so, because they're supporting you, but we also have to support them. So when a driver is stressed behind the wheel of their cab, how does that manifest in the pet? And how can that be how can they balance that relationship so that they're both feeling supportive in the cab of the truck? Does that sound weird and woo, or do you get where I'm going?
Not at all. The fact of the matter is pets are very, very connected to your sixth sense, if you will.
I will.
And that is called the vomeronasal organ, if you will. But that's how pets know you're taking a trip before you pack your suitcases. They know if you're having a house party before the guests arrive. They know all these things because they're connected to your psyche. And we all get stressed for various reasons. And certainly a lot of the pet-loving listeners on your show, the job is on the road, and that's stressful in and of itself. So, other than getting a good night's sleep and all of that kind of stuff, as far as the pet goes, essential oils, specifically made for dogs, if you will. In my clinic here in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, I use a combination of chamomile and blue cypress essential oils. They smell nice. I shake a couple of drops right on the back of the pet. And for some pets, in less than 5 minutes, it's like they had a little glass of wine. I mean, it works terrific.
Yeah, don't give him too much, though.
Well, you can't overdose them. There's no adverse effect. So it doesn't work on all of them, but when it works, it works wonderfully. Over the counter or online product like a Box 5 Flowers or Rescue Remedy, those are just homeopathic combinations of flower essences. They're over the counter. You don't need a prescription. You can put a few drops in your pet's food or water. You can put a few drops directly in your pet's mouth, or you can rub a few drops into the inside hairless inner ear flap. That's a little holistic spot. And again, it'll just kind of take the edge off, if you will.
Let me bring up a point that you made. You talk about the idea of you can't overdose them on this stuff, and you also mentioned earlier about making sure you read the label, and that sets up my question of how do you make sure that your cab is pet-friendly? How do you make sure that there aren't things in your cab that are going to have an adverse effect on the pet? How do you make a home?
Well, they got some pretty fancy cabs out there. And I would say that every driver probably has to use a good dose of common sense to look around and see if things appear to be fine. Need to have a nice place for the pet to sleep, and to hang out with mom or dad while you're on the road. And there's pet safety belts. There's all kinds of gear available for pets traveling with their people. In a case of a trucker, these guys are on the road all the time. So I don't think you want to have a dog go with you that's locked up in a carrier. That doesn't make a lot of sense, at least not to me. So I think it's just a healthy dose of common sense. And if it's a young dog, you might want to start with a little pet safety belt, something like that. But more than anything, I think it's going to come down to common sense. Bring along some food and water, and certainly, you have to stop every 4 hours or so to get a potty break and stretch your legs. Just really common sense kind of things. They've got all kinds of portable food and water bowls and all those things, which are fun to shop for and great to use.
Okay, so let's talk about being on the road in the midst of, sometimes we find ourselves in situations we don't have a pet store we can hop over to, or store in general. So what are some of your favorite, I'll call them MacGyver style road hacks for pet health emergencies? Things that people could keep in the cab that'd be like, fill in the blank of. Yeah, exactly. First aid kit, or just support, whether it's food or anything across the board. Some road hacks for our drivers out there to always have handy for their pets on the road.
Yeah, just get a little first aid kit, a little pet first aid kit. You can buy them online almost anywhere. And, they'll have the basics, some bandaging supplies, a little adhesive tape, some, a pair of tweezers, a scissors, some alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, maybe a little topical antiseptic type thing. Just, the very basics. Maybe a styptic pencil, in case you get a little cut or break a nail.
I was going to follow up really quickly. By the way, this is from one of our listeners who just was asking about the borax situation. We're talking about indoors, right? I mean, can that be applied in any way outside in regards to the borax? Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, it's just for the inside, and it works pretty good for the inside. As far as the outside, ticks, which are much more of a problem for most people right now. Ticks drop down from bushes and trees. So other than, spraying your yard, if you cut back all the brush and the shrubs, that's not a bad idea. As far as the fleas, they've got all kinds of stuff that you can buy if you have a lot of money you don't know what to do with outside of your home. But me personally, I wouldn't waste my money on any of it. Prevention, put something on your pet that you're comfortable with, whether it's topical or something from the veterinarian, and that will go a long way to keep you flea free, during the particular season, if you will.
Flea free. That's hard to say. Keep me flea free. We are joined this morning with our guest who's had on before, Dr. Carol Osborne, joining us. We talk a lot around here. Or I do, at least. I love it. The mental health aspect and the connection piece, emotional piece. And I know a lot of people roll their eyes at me, but I also believe we're whether you want to believe it or not, you're leaning into these things by just having a pet along with you, like I said at the beginning. So what would you say, Dr. Carol, what do pets give truckers or anybody, I guess, traveling companions, but nothing else on the road can? So many of our drivers love the freedom of the road, the sights and sounds of the road, the people they meet along the way. But maybe this is convincing somebody who's feeling a little lonely out there that having a pet along with them, although it is an additional responsibility, it really is a great give back. So what do you think it means for mental health to have a pet out there supporting you?
I think it's great. They give you lots of unconditional love. And everybody needs that.
I wanted to also, speaking about their mental health as well, follow up on Lindsay's thing so you're bringing out your pet for the first time, and we talk about the idea of making sure that the space is safe for them, that you in fact have a first aid kit. But how do you acclimate a pet who hasn't been out there before to the sights and sound? We're talking to drivers here, so there's a lot of loud noises. There are a lot of people in parking lots, a lot of people at rest areas, but you want to get the dog healthy and happy. You want to get him or her out there enjoying the life around them. How do you acclimate a dog to the road in the sense of once you get it out of the cab, not just in the cab, but when it's out mixing and mingling? And like I said, in some ways, I realize that moves beyond health and into the mental health of the animal, but you know a lot about that as well. Correct?
You have a leash and a collar or a harness, and you just start introducing them to the sights and sounds and smells and activity as much as you can from day one, and see how they adjust. A little bit at a time, just like a child. There's no magic. You know what I mean? Just common sense and a little bit at a time.
Because that's a really interesting point, the idea that it's like if you're treating it like a child, but you're also treating it like a companion, that's really kind of the mix there. And so, Lindsay talked about the idea of them kind of watching out for us and bringing joy into our lives. But I was curious in regards to knowing, in regards to discipline as well, and in regards to their health, how to be able to read a dog that's being a fidgety child and a dog that's actually not well. And that's hard to tell. And what about the issue of motion sickness as well? Because I can see a dog getting irritable because they're not used to it, because so many dogs, as we know, like to put their heads out the window. Can you explain why it is that dogs do that and why that's so important to make sure that there's air moving through the truck?
Yeah, well, first of all, dogs shouldn't put their head outside the window. It causes eye injuries and all kinds of things. So I know that it's fun. But it's not smart. And second of all, you know how your pet acts normally when he's healthy. they're content. They urinate, they defecate, they eat their food. They're normally not lethargic. If your pet stops eating, becomes mopey, lethargic, vomiting, diarrhea, anything like that, well, that would normally be a sign that he or she is not feeling well. And, as far as getting used to car rides or truck rides, you go up and down the driveway, take a trip around the block. You take little rides before you take big rides. If you have a pet with a lot of motion sickness, that pet probably is not going to be an ideal companion for long trips. I think in my experience, a very small percentage of pets, experience motion sickness. Many of them grow out of it. Some of them don't. There's no magic recipes there, but doping your pet out on Dramamine for your trip is, obviously not enjoyable for
Selfish.
you or the pet. So, once again, we're just talking about a healthy dose of common sense.
I'm curious, there are these, you as a vet yourself, obviously there's insurance plans that you can get with your local vet or wherever you use, or whether it's a national brand. But for the people on the road, there are these, I guess, now I've seen there's a company I know and work with that are doing telehealth for your pets that you can call in on the road. What do you maybe recommend for drivers to use, for people out on the road to use as a check-in when they're traveling but actually need to see a vet or need some support? What are some of the best methods when you're on the road?
I think for drivers, if something's going on and you don't know what it might be, something like, these vets online, there's all kinds. I think, they're great to answer a quick question or whatever it might be, which can put you at ease or let you know that, you need to pull off and find an emergency center, or someone to help you. So I think in those situations, that's not, insurance, if you will. That's just getting a little bit of quick advice that I think is a good option. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's always a smart idea to have, a veterinarian, wherever your main campus is, or wherever your home is, to just have a place that you can kind of count on when when you're not traveling, when you do come back home. But when you're on the road and you need something, being able to dial it up on your phone, I think it's very handy.
Let me just give one more follow-up. Dr. Carol Osborne joins us this morning as well, and the idea that and like I said, we talk about the idea of getting the animal out the car, and the idea of acclimating it to the world around it as well too. When is the moment where you should pull back? I mean, what kind of attitude does the dog have in regards to getting over its first skittishness? Should you at some point say, this animal is not for me on the road? Because it's a tough call for a lot of people, but some animals are terrific in the home and then become long-term traveling companions, and it just doesn't wash. What is the moment, I'm not talking about biting somebody, but when you begin to realize it might go in that direction? Are there any telltale signs the dog is, or any pet is having a hard time acclimating to what's going on around it?
Yeah, I mean, once again, they're either calm, content, and happy, or they're urinating and defecating all over your truck.
Me too, guys. Same.
And making a lot of noise. If you have a pet like that, that's a bad choice. You know what I'm saying? On the other hand, there's all kinds that'll just jump right in and be as happy as you are. So, yeah, you might have to try a couple out. If you get some, high-strung, purebred animal, that might not be the best choice in certain cases. But there's plenty of pets that'll be more than delighted to jump in there and sit right up on the front seat and help you navigate your trip with no problems at all.
Well, I'll leave you with this, or I'll end with this, Dr. Carol. What I went on this, I did this truck stop tour for years where we'd go do concerts at different truck stops, and there was multiple people that had monkeys along the road with them. One guy had a large monkey, one had a little pocket monkey wearing a diaper. True story. So, what are some of the maybe the weirdest pets you could think of, but that also work with somebody to take on the road, like a snake in your sleeper cab or a mini goat with a trucker hat? What outside of the obvious dog and cat is something that maybe could actually work as a pet on the road with you?
Well, I think you bring up a very good point, and gosh, I don't know. I think that probably leaves room for the imagination. I think exotics are great. I think there's a time and a place for everything, and I also think you have to really consider the health and wellness of the pet, because even though it might be a kick for you, and everybody makes a big fuss, at the end of the day, I would honestly have to say that the health and welfare of the animal really, in my opinion, are first and foremost. So while maybe, a little capuchin monkey might be happy doing that, I think sometimes individuals take it to the extreme, and then you have to maybe take a step back, if you will.
That's a really good.
Don't be an idiot.
That's a really good point. The idea that it's like there are
That's exactly right.
That's the
Simple
big
as that.
that's the big takeaway from today. That's the other thing too, Lindsay. I think Dr. Carroll makes a good point. So do you. The idea that it's like there are certain animals that if you're bringing them along for your job, you better make sure they're low maintenance. If in fact it requires a lot of care and attention, it means you can't focus on the road, and you want to bring along something that's low maintenance. One last quick question: if I forced you to make a choice with a new dog to pick one breed that you would want sitting alongside of you for a long trip, is there anyone that you would gravitate towards?
Labrador Retriever.
I would too. That's where I'd go. That's where I'd
Boom,
go.
said with no paws at all. So that is the one. If you're considering the dog on the road for you, perhaps look into a Labrador Retriever.
Dr. Carol Osborne, we always love having you here, especially on our new format. Thank you for making the time. It's an absolute pleasure. Where can we expect to see you next? What's your next big project?
Well, I'd love to join Radio Nemo anytime at all, so feel free to holler at me. We can talk pets, anything you want. In the meantime, pet-loving listeners can reach us online at drdcarol.com. And they can call us toll-free at 855-Dr. which is 855-372-2765.
855 Dr. Carol. That's fun. How you scored that is amazing. Just like us here at 615-292-NEMO. Same. Dr. Carol, thanks so much. Have the best day. Jimmy Mack, if you were going to go, you have interesting pets. You have chickens with diapers. So that's different. Would your chickens be able to travel on the road or no?
They can and they have.
They can and they have. Okay.
They can and they have, and they are really low maintenance. They were.
They are,
well,
really?
there's only one. There was only one now because the other one
Right.
passed away after 11
Right.
years. That's the sadness of the passing of that particular pet was sad. Of course, I found her that morning. That being said, was when she was returned to us, the doctor says she's got a little more time, and rather than have her here under our care, why don't we just send her home? We know you love her. He had the best line, by the way. It made Claire feel so good. The doctor said, because Claire said, was there anything else that we could have done? And he said, the chicken lived to 11. I don't know what more else you could have done. He said, chickens
You did it, yeah.
He said, you did it. You accomplished it. You won. He said, it only makes it more sad because you have a longer attachment. But the chickens, when they did travel, were wonderful. They would just simply sit. And you would drive, and they would sit, and they wouldn't get worked up about anything, and it would be fine. And
How did you end up with chickens? Was that you or Claire
it was
or
Claire.
a couple things?
When I got to Claire's house,
I'm sure I know the answer. But
I was living not far from where the studio is right now. I wasn't too far. I was in a place called North White Street, and Claire and I had debated about the idea of her maybe spending more time at my apartment. And then Claire just said, you know what, the heck with it, just move in here. She and her sister and her dad and her mom are all terrific gardeners. And one of the things that Claire had incorporated into her garden was a chicken coop. And there was a whole bunch of them at the time. And then there began to be a hawk problem, and slowly but surely, as the chickens that Claire had had for years began to pass away from one reason or another, eventually Claire had done some research. So
Dora the Chicken Explorer?
Yeah, actually, it's a Dorosaurus is her actual full name.
Of course it is.
I came up with it. I said I adore her, and they're all dinosaurs, so we called it a Dorosaurus, which became Dora for short. And Dora acclimating inside. Claire just did some research, discovered that provided you properly take care of them, no one ever smells chickens in your house if you do it properly. And then when the last chicken died outside, there was one more. There were 2 chickens, and one passed away. And then Claire brought Buckbeak inside. And then Buckbeak came in and joined us inside. And then the 2 of them got along famously, and we were off to the races. And they just lived inside.
Did they lay eggs for you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what Claire did eventually, because...
Or not for you, but in general.
I don't know if you know this, but... Even chickens that are bred in the wild now, the breeding has gotten to the point where what is really tragic is they lay too many eggs, and they're tearing themselves up inside. So you can actually get an implant that lasts about anywhere from 6 months to 8 months that prevents them from laying eggs outside of their cycles. They're genuine cycles.
Yeah.
And you do that, and they don't tear themselves up inside as much, which also increases their lifespan. But the implants would wear off, and there would be a period of like a month in there before we'd get the second implants in, where they'd lay a bunch of eggs, and we'd eat them. Or we'd give it to them to eat, which they can. They're supposed to eat them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they really are, because they're high protein. And, the idea that there's no waste inside of them. I mean, the chickens in many ways are one of the great gifts the Creator has given us in the universe. There is a thing with feathers that can't fly, that you don't have to chase to catch, that literally drops protein food on the ground inside of a shell. That means it has no waste on the actual food stuff on it. So we would make eggs occasionally from what they'd lay. We'd make scrambled eggs or upside, or sunny side up eggs and all that kind of stuff. It was really good.
And will Claire eat eggs?
Claire will eat pasture-raised eggs. Is
Gotcha.
the only eggs that Claire will eat, and we'll buy them at a farmer's market or something like that.
The thing that's been interesting living out, and we're going to take a break here, but living out, I live out in somewhat of the country, out sort of in the woods, I'll say, in Franklin, Tennessee, but there's a lot of people that, especially how expensive eggs have gotten, so people thinking, I'll get chickens because then I can have free eggs, and they don't realize it's a lot of work.
It's work.
It's a lot of work, and it's care and concern to do it right, and there's a lot of elements outside you have to deal with. So I know people in the city that have gotten gotten chickens because it's trendy, and quickly realized, oh, this is a lot of work, this is dirty, this is gross, whatever they think it is. So do yourself a favor, as Dr. Carol talked about. Think long and hard about why you were adding a living being to your life, to your livelihood, and why you doing. Intention is everything. Why you doing it? Make it okay for both you and the animal. This is Road Gang Radio.